In the last video, we explored how salt and citrine could unlock what was stuck inside you. A golden stone and a pinch of salt that changed the way energy moved. But what if that's not all? What if salt could do more? Much more. When combined with something darker. Something that doesn't just attract, but resets. Charcoal. Add it to your salt, and watch the old energy disappear, like it was never there. You've heard about salt. You've placed it in corners. You've watched it work. Or at least, you hoped it did. But lately, something's changed. The energy around your wealth corner feels heavy. Not blocked, just stale. Like it's been breathing in the same air. Again and again. Salt can absorb, but even salt gets tired. Even salt needs help, and that's where charcoal steps in. The element of fire, hidden in black, a keeper of heat, a destroyer of stagnant chi. Together, they don't just cleanse, they reset. They wipe the slate clean and ask the universe to try again. Before we begin, if you've been with us, this isn't just a channel about rituals. It's a space where we dive deep into the hidden movements of energy, the quiet shifts in Fengshui, and the forgotten power of salt. Each video in this playlist reveals a layer most people never see. Not just how to use salt, but why it works, when it stops, and how to awaken it again. And this one might be the reset your space has been waiting for. So stay with me until the end. Let the ritual unfold. Let your space breathe. And when something inside you shifts, come back here and whisper it in the comments. And if you're new, don't just watch. Subscribe so you don't miss the next quiet key to unlocking your wealth flow. Not all energy blockages are loud. Sometimes, it's not chaos. It's the silence that warns you. The money still comes in, but it doesn't stay. The space feels normal, but nothing moves. It happens slowly. The shift is so subtle, most people miss it. You clean your home, you place the salt, but over time, you don't feel the lightness anymore. And that's when it starts. The buildup. Not dirt, but energetic weight. The kind you can't see, but your spirit notices. Salt is powerful. It pulls negativity out of the air, out of the corners, out of your energetic field. But like any tool, it has limits. It absorbs, but it doesn't transform. It holds, but it doesn't clear. Over time, your salt gets full. It reaches a point of saturation, and instead of cleansing, it starts to echo what it's been holding. In energy science, salt is hygroscopic. It pulls in moisture, along with airborne ions and impurities. But those ions, once absorbed, don't disappear. They sit trapped in the salt. Unless something else comes in to burn them off, that energy just stays, lingering, growing heavier with time. I remember walking into a room where I had placed a bowl of salt months ago. At first, it felt lighter. But then one day, it was like the room had gone quiet in the wrong way. The air wasn't just still. It was tired, like the salt had absorbed too much and couldn't hold it anymore. That's when I realized salt alone wasn't enough anymore. And there was something older, something deeper, that our ancestors used when salt began to fail. Something black, something silent, and something that burns without fire. Let me show you. Long before it warmed meals, charcoal was used to protect homes, not just from intruders, but from energy. The kind you can't see, but always feel. We think of charcoal as the end, what's left after fire. But in truth, charcoal is not an ending. It's what holds fire after it stops burning. In Fengshui, the fire element isn't just about heat or passion. It's about transformation, taking something that no longer serves and turning it into something neutral, clean, new. Charcoal carries that essence. It doesn't scream like a flame. It whispers, quietly pulling in the unseen. Toxins, old memories, stuck thoughts, ancestral residue, and burning them without light. While salt may catch what's floating, charcoal digs deeper. It reaches into the air's fatigue, into the residue left by arguments, failures, grief, the things you thought were gone, but still echo in the corners. It absorbs them like a shadow that doesn't echo back. And unlike salt, charcoal doesn't just hold. It clears. In the old villages of East and Southeast Asia, charcoal wasn't something you threw away. It was kept carefully, intentionally, and placed where energy tended to turn heavy. Near doorways, beneath altars, even under beds where children slept, not as a superstition, but as a silent shield. The elders believed charcoal could absorb bad wind, the invisible currents that carried illness, misfortune, or sorrow from past events. In some homes, women would place a charcoal piece wrapped in red cloth inside rice jars to keep the energy of food alive and protected. In temples, old monks would burn herbs over charcoal, not for the flame, but for the way the charcoal held the sacred smoke and transmitted it slowly into every hidden corner of space. Even in funerals, charcoal was placed in quiet corners, not to mourn the dead, but to hold space, to keep the grief from staying too long. This wasn't just folklore. It was energetic intelligence, a recognition that some things don't just leave by will. They need to be transformed by something strong enough to hold darkness without becoming dark. That's what charcoal is. Activated charcoal is used in hospitals to absorb poison. It binds to toxins, locking them down so they can't spread. In the air, it attracts chemicals, VOCs, mold spores, things invisible to us, but deeply disruptive to our nervous systems and emotional clarity. While salt gathers, charcoal breaks the cycle. That's why together, they don't just clean, they cleanse. Years ago, I visited a village tucked deep in the mountains of northern Thailand, the kind of place where time slows and houses still whisper stories through wooden walls. I stayed with an old woman, quiet eyes, slow hands. In every room of her home, there was a small black bowl filled with nothing but a single piece of charcoal. No label, no explanation, just presence. One evening, I asked her, "Why do you keep those bowls everywhere?" She didn't answer right away. She just smiled, placed her hand on the bowl nearest us, and whispered, "Because some energies don't leave on their own. They have to be held and burned quietly." That night, I slept deeper than I had in months. The air felt still, not empty, but clean, and I never forgot it. The silence in that home wasn't void. It was peace. And now, every time I place charcoal next to salt, I think of her and how she taught me something that most of us had long forgotten. So what happens When you place salt and charcoal together, one absorbs, one transforms, and together, they don't just hold energy, they reset it. Let's compare the energy of salt alone to what happens when charcoal enters the bowl. Both salt and charcoal are cleansers, but they don't cleanse in the same way. One holds on, the other lets go. That difference is the line between feeling cleared and feeling free. Salt is powerful, but when used alone for too long, it becomes like a sponge that never gets rinsed. It keeps pulling until it can't, until it's full, and then it starts giving back the very thing it tried to hold. Energy doesn't just pause, it loops. And salt, by itself, can trap you inside that loop. Imagine this. You walk into a bedroom that feels off. It's clean. Nothing seems wrong. But there's a pressure in your chest. Not pain, just tension. In the far corner, there's a glass bowl, salt white, and finds its quietly inside. You placed it there weeks ago when you learned about Fengshui rituals. It worked at first. The room felt fresher. But lately, things have been feeling stuck again. Money flows in, but leaves just as fast. Your sleep is shallow. Conversations linger in your mind longer than they should. Now imagine, you step into a second room. Same layout, same furniture, same bowl of salt. But this time, resting at the center of the salt is a single piece of charcoal. Black. Still. No scent, no smoke, just presence. And immediately, the air feels different. Not just clean, but calm. The kind of stillness that feels intentional. Like the space knows how to protect itself. Like it's been taught how to let go. You breathe in, and it's lighter. Not because the salt is stronger, but because it's no longer holding everything alone. Charcoal doesn't just help. It resets the energy, clearing what salt can only store. A few years ago, I was consulting for a woman in San Diego. She had just moved into a new apartment. Light-filled, spacious, beautifully arranged. But something felt stuck. She told me, "I've done everything. I placed the salt bowls. I decluttered. I even burned sage every week. But I keep feeling like my money leaves faster than it comes, and I don't know why." When I checked her space, everything seemed right, except one thing. In the wealth corner, her salt bowl had turned a dull gray, dry on top, but damp underneath. I asked her how long it had been there. She said, 3 months. I didn't want to disturb it. I thought the longer it stayed, the better. That's when I told her about charcoal. Not incense, not fire, just activated charcoal. We replaced the bowl with a fresh layer of sea salt and added a single cube of charcoal at the center. Nothing else. No chant. No candle. Just placement. Quietly. A week later, she called me. Her voice was different. Lighter. I don't know how to explain this, but the space feels like it can breathe again. I had 2 clients return without me following up. My sleep is better. I feel less foggy. It wasn't dramatic, but it was real. The charcoal didn't bring her money. It simply cleared what had been holding it back. And since then, I've never used salt alone. So how do you combine them? How much salt? What kind of charcoal? Where should you place it? And when does it start working? Let's walk through the ritual, step by step. It doesn't take much. A single bowl, a small pile of salt, one black stone, and a quiet corner. That's all it takes to begin again. Most rituals focus on attracting. This one clears the road, because sometimes it's not about asking for more. It's about removing what's in the way. This ritual doesn't beg. It resets. It tells the room, we're starting fresh, we're ready now. Long before crystals lined windowsills, before coins were hung on red thread, before anyone ever whispered, wealth corner, there was salt, and there was charcoal. In the old world, when a family moved into a new home, they didn't start by placing wealth symbols. They didn't rush to decorate or burn incense hoping for luck. First, they waited. They listened. They sat in silence and watched how the air moved. And then they prepared a bowl. A simple one. Clay, sometimes wood. Nothing ornate. Inside, they poured salt to draw out the remnants of whoever lived there before. The sadness, the illness, the heavy decisions still lingering in the walls. And in the center, they placed charcoal, pulled from last season's fire, not to cook, but to cleanse, not to warm, but to transform. That bowl would sit for 9 days, untouched, absorbing what could not be seen. And only after the 9th day would they place anything else. A coin, a statue, a plant, a talisman, because they knew if the field wasn't cleared, even the most powerful object would get buried beneath what hadn't been released. It wasn't just Fengshui. It was respect for space, for energy, for everything unseen that still lived in the air. And now, when you place your own bowl of salt and charcoal, you're not just performing a ritual, you're joining a lineage of people who understood. You don't invite abundance into a cluttered field. You clear the field first. You make room. Then, you ask. Salt works through absorption, drawing in negative ions and emotional residues. Charcoal, especially activated charcoal, operates like a molecular filter. In science, it's used in detox, water purifiers, and air filters, not to hide the toxins, but to neutralize them. When placed together, these two create a polarity. Salt grounds, charcoal transforms. Yin and yang, earth and fire, pull and release. Ritual steps, the reset bowl. So now, when you're ready, not to ask, but to clear, here's how the ritual begins. Find a small bowl, one that feels neutral, honest. Ceramic, glass, or wood. Not plastic, not shiny. Just still. Rinse it gently with warm water. Not because it's dirty, but because you're waking it up. Then, take a small handful of natural sea salt. Not too fine, not too coarse, and pour it in slowly. Let it settle. Let the white grains spread like a quiet snowfall. And now, place your charcoal. One piece. No fire. No scent. Just the black stone, resting in the center of the salt, like a quiet guardian. Don't stir. Don't press. Just place. And as you do, whisper softly. Not to the bowl, but to the space around you. Let this salt hold what I release. Let this charcoal burn what no longer belongs. Place the bowl in your wealth corner, the far left corner from your main entrance. Or, if your space feels clouded at the front, near your doorway, where new energy enters, leave it there for 7, 9, or even 21 days. There's no fixed number, only a quiet knowing. You'll feel it when the air begins to shift, and when it's time to refresh, you'll know. The salt will feel heavy. The charcoal may darken further. Don't flush it. Wrap it gently, or bury it in the earth. Let the weight return to where it can be reborn. Because this isn't a ritual for wealth. It's a ritual to make space for wealth to enter. So, you've placed the bowl. You've poured the salt. You've placed the charcoal. You've whispered you're letting go. Now what? Do you wait? Do you check it every day? Number. You listen. Not with your ears, but with the space around you. Some rituals don't ask for action. They ask for presence. You might notice it when you wake up. The room feels lighter. Your thoughts feel less tangled. Or maybe it's more subtle. A phone call you've been waiting for. A delayed payment finally cleared. A sudden sense of clarity, where before there was fog. Whatever it is, don't rush to name it. Just let it come, because the bowl is doing its work, quietly. And when energy moves like that, it doesn't knock. It just flows. Now that the ritual is set, what happens after? What shifts in a space that's no longer holding the past? Let's find out. When the space is clear, abundance doesn't need to knock. It simply enters, like it remembers. It always belonged here. What actually happens after the ritual? The first shift is subtle. The room feels lighter, not because something was added, but because something heavy is finally gone. You may find yourself breathing deeper, sleeping better, focusing more clearly, because your space is no longer echoing old energy. Financially, you may notice money that was stuck starts to move. Delayed payments clear. Unexpected opportunities arise. Conversations about work or value flow more easily. Energetically, it's like a door that had been stuck finally opens. Not because you pushed harder, but because now nothing is blocking the other side. And that's what this ritual really does. It doesn't create wealth. It removes what was stopping it. Tonight, we didn't just place salt and charcoal in a bowl. We placed a decision, a choice to stop letting stagnant energy linger and to let your space breathe again. This wasn't a ritual of calling. It was a ritual of clearing. And now, if you feel a shift, even the smallest one, I invite you to whisper it back. Leave a comment. Share what moved, or what finally let go. And if you haven't yet, join us. Subscribe so you don't miss the next quiet ritual that could unlock something waiting in your own home. I'll see you in the next video, and until then, may your energy stay clear and your path open.